Hi there, and welcome to the Sorry I Like This podcast. I'm your host today, Caleb, joined by my fellow friend, my co-host, Ezra. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Caleb. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I should say I'm doing great because even though this isn't a sports podcast, I cannot be more happier than this past weekend with the Lions. Okay,
Ooh,
big
okay.
Detroit, big Detroit fan. So I gotta say, um, it was nice to see the Cowboys get knocked down a peg or two. Let's just put it that way. So I'm having a good week. We'll see
Good.
how this week goes though, because it's a big game this week, divisional game. So against a really tough rival. So we'll
Yeah.
see how
We
that
shall
works.
see. Yeah. Yeah, I my only real because I don't follow sports, my only real um like I don't know how to my only real like window in to sports is you. And then like sometimes at work
Hmm.
people will talk about the OSU game.
Oh yeah.
I work at Cracker Barrel, so it's that's the audience of workers there. People are going to talk about the OSU game, in part because like business is kind of affected by
Hmm.
when OSU plays, um, and then
Yeah,
also
absolutely.
my dad is a Bengals fan. And so
Oh,
he
okay.
was like really happy when the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, I think. Um, so yeah, it's like I'm always like he'll be watching football one day, and I'm like, okay, so like, who are you rooting for, and who do you want
Hmm.
to, who what matters the most if who wins and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
but then a lot of like um it's funny because a lot of like the jargon ends up going over my head, and I'm like, oh, this is what other people feel like when I talk about video games.
yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's
So prepare for like an hour and a half, 2 hours of that.
exactly. I was like, how do I segue from like it's a good segue, it's a good setup, but I don't know how to say it. Okay, all right. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, we got a fun episode ahead of us. Um, we are post TGS now,
Yes.
so we'll dive into what was revealed, what wasn't revealed, and yeah, kind of go a little bit from there. We got a few reviews from Ezra this time around,
Yep.
and then yeah, and following to the end, we'll be doing our next book club. Now,
Yep.
granted, I'm not finished with well, not doing our next revealing our next book club. Now, granted,
Yes.
I'm not finished with Katane's story in Scarlet Nexus, but I'm pretty much almost at the point where I've gotten the gist of everything. We'll just put it
Yeah.
that way. I'm almost at that point, so I can be pretty confident in that. We we can move on, and maybe I'll have a follow up review soon on that. I'm not too concerned about it. Probably by next episode, I would imagine.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I mean, so yeah, back to the book club. So we will be revealing Ezra's next assignment.
Yes.
So
I'm looking forward to it. Actually.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I got some pretty fun choices that I'm excited to hear which one you want to choose.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I mean, without further ado, I would say let's get into it, shall we? Um,
Yeah, let's do it.
so our first big thing that I would say came out of TGS, right? So this uh actually, so I should preface this with last podcast I said we're not getting a PlayStation State of Play the day after we record. No, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I think it was the day after or the day 2 days after. But I was pretty confident in that point they weren't going to do a State of Play until during TGS.
Yeah.
But no, they decided they were going to do it a day early to kick it off.
Yep.
Which, I mean, it makes sense, but I just didn't think at that point that they would actually reveal it. So, um, yeah, I mean, the first big reveal that I would say happened, like for me, this was the moment that I went from sleeping at the State of Play to okay, I'm awake and freaking out.
Yeah.
Type of moment was the Stellar Blade update. Like I
Yeah.
uh I mean the update trailer starts off, very like a very typical update for any kind of game post launch. Like, oh, there's been the photo mode added, like there's
Yeah.
the, what I mean. There's just been just adding small updates, and the next thing you know, right at the end, the screen goes black, or yeah, actually it goes gray, I think, and then all of a sudden music starts playing.
Yeah.
It was something saying coming soon. And this was one of those moments, Ezra. If you remember very vividly, I'm pretty sure you do, of the Sephiroth reveal for Smash.
Yes. Yeah.
I had a similar moment, not quite as big, but a similar moment as that, because as soon as I heard the music, I instantly was like, instant. I was like, oh my god, they're actually doing it. I can't
Yeah.
believe they're actually doing it, to be honest with you. It
Yeah, I
makes
find it
sense.
surprising as well, actually. Yeah.
It makes sense, but at the same time, like, I never would have thought it would happen, or at
Yeah.
least that quickly. And yeah, we're getting a near collaboration with Stellar Blade,
Yep.
and yeah, I flipped out. I don't know if you like. I don't know how your reaction was. I know you didn't get to see it until later in the day. Were you surprised by it? Did you know about it? Um,
Um
what was your kind of reaction?
oh, yeah, so I had to I was working that day and I had to like kind of hold back from seeing the reveals.
Hmm.
Um I think what like my I think my first I was really tired, so like my first reaction was like, oh, that's what Kayla was talking about. Um uh
Because I was like, okay, there's going to be a reveal. You won't see it coming.
yeah.
Can
One,
guarantee
yeah.
that.
It was one of those things where it was like they revealed it and my thought was like, "Oh, okay." Like it's one of those things that's like I'm not I'm not sure what it's going to be, so I can't like be um I'm not like jump out of my seat hyped for it, I guess. Um yeah, cuz 2B has been in so many games at this point. Like she's been like Automata has crossed over with an untold amount of games at this point. And I've participated in all of them, and it's all been fun. Like I don't think it's a bad thing, but there's like a crossover, and then there's is it gonna be like a sequel crossover? Is is Eve gonna like end up in an alternate universe, or is there's all I have a lot of like questions about
Right,
okay,
exactly. Are they gonna
like
just like make it canon or not?
is it I mean, we talked about this. I think it was like episode like 4 of the podcast. We did a whole thing, and it was basically like, yeah, FF14 is canon to the near timeline, and which therefore makes it canon to the Drakengard timeline, which, if you think about FF14, that technically makes it canon to the Kingdom Hearts franchise, yada yada, right? Like it's and so uh and that was all pre-Rebirth, actually.
It was.
So yeah, I think um I think that reveal, I think it's a cool reveal, and I also think it looks very pretty. I'm also very much like I just want Yoko Taro's next game.
Yeah.
That's and like the fact that he made 3 House of, or not House of Cards,
Yeah, whatever they.
Voice of Cards.
There we go. Yeah.
Uh, he made 3 Voice of Cards games. The first one's fun. It's a bit kind of milk toast compared to some of his others, especially compared to like the first Nier, um,
Mm.
which I think like Automata is one of my this is tangent, sorry, but
That's
Automata
fine.
is like
Yeah.
is one of my favorite like works of art of all time, in terms of like as like a thought piece, and then also as like execution of a narrative. I would contend though that Near Replicant is arguably one of the most like important works from like a literary perspective today. Like it's one of those things where I'm like, I wish like politicians would play this game and like really absorb what it has to say.
Hmm.
Um, and that's there's there's a whole lot behind that, but I think that um like you can kind of tell that the Voice of Cards games were experimental.
Hmm.
um and it's not a bad thing, but it is like okay, like let's I want them to like uh I mean, who knows what's going on over at Platinum anymore, but uh
Hmm.
I just want like a Yoko Taro Platinum. It doesn't even have to be Near. It could be Drakengard. It um could be something totally different. I mean, he was doing those uh interviews with Atlas about Metaphor, right? So like
Hmm.
there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, it would be my like I might die if I ever heard that he was working on an Atlas RPG, right? Like that would be crazy. Like if somebody said to me like, yeah, he got tapped to direct the next Shin Megami Tensei game, I'd be like, that's cool.
Mhm.
But like, I want him to like, okay, I want him to lock in. Basically, I want him to like, I believe he still has it in him. And so I just sort of I want to see it. Um, and so like a collaboration with Automata is like cool. I have to wait and see, is Yoko Taro heavily involved? Is he not?
Mhm.
Stellar Blade, like the developers have said very often, like, yeah, Automata was a heavy source of inspiration.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like it would be a little bit like um it has the same kind of vibe as like a um Mega Man crossing over with Mighty Number 9 thing, right? Like
Mhm.
that kind of like character inspired by one character crosses over with that character. Um and it can work, but it's sort of like, okay, at what point does it start to get too muddy? And I already wasn't like I wasn't like Stellar Blade's biggest fan.
Mhm.
I was actually a proponent of it going in, but I walked away a um, little bit more sort of uh, lukewarm on it than maybe I would have liked. But I'm I'm interested. I'm not gonna turn my nose up at more near content, but
Mhm.
again, it's like wait and see. Hopefully, Yoko Taro's involved and something crazy happens. Like, I don't know. It's weird. They do like tease a sequel at the end of Stellar Blade. Whereas like Automata's ending is very like um uh, uh, to say they tease a sequel is maybe not necessarily accurate. They kind of do the whole like the battle rages on kind of thing. Um, Whereas Automata is like, okay, it's.
Mhm.
And the other thing is the trailer is like, okay, this is a vista from the game near Automata, right? Like it's not
Right.
2B is not in a Stellar Blade environment. So yeah, who knows, right? Like who knows? And yeah, I will stop talking about it.
No, you're fine. No. I mean, I should I should also say I have not played Stellar Blade yet.
Yeah.
Funny enough, though, this would be a good way to get me into the game. I haven't played
Yes.
it, mostly because I just kind of going off of you and kind of just like at the time it just didn't make sense as far as my schedule wise, and I was just like, you know, because I think at the time I had just finished um, Rebirth, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
Because that
yeah,
took me
like
a while.
you kind of had like barely finished it. If you were even you might have still been in the thick of it actually.
Right. And I think for me I was very much like I want to this is a good time for me to dive into the backlog. So I was like I'll hold off on Stellar Blade. Maybe I'll pick it up on sale during the holidays and the rest is history on that, but that was like a selling ticket for me. Like,
Yeah.
post-launch selling ticket. And I'm like, okay, you got me intrigued. Like, I very much, I guess I just was not expecting it so much. I thought that maybe like that could happen later in like a year from now, type of thing. Like maybe it's
Yeah.
gone through a few different updates by that point. Um, and then I'd be kind of more like, okay, that makes sense. Um, but yeah, I mean, also to be fair, that state of play was very much a lot of duds. So I very much was just kind of like waiting for something to happen, and,
Yeah.
and
No, that's
that
fair.
was the first thing that happened. Um, and besides one other thing prior to that, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Um, I do want to say though, the 1-2 combo we got at the end there, because, well, I will say the way the state of play went, there was the near reveal, and then Mark Cerny came back on, essentially recapped everything that was in the PlayStation Pro, PlayStation 5 Pro showcase that was 2 weeks prior.
Yeah.
Uh, Further adding to the fact that the PlayStation 5 Pro showcase that happened 2 weeks prior was irrelevant because it was just a very short, summed up version of exactly what was shown at that showcase. Like, I mean, it hit all the notes, the important notes of what that was, what it was the last time. That it could have really just been like just been the state of play. Like they didn't need to go out and do a whole showcase on the PlayStation 5 Pro, in my
Yeah.
opinion. From what they recap in the state of play,
I think
that
they
would have been perfect
absolutely
timing.
my read was that they absolutely thought they had that they like cooked with the
Mm-hmm.
PS5 Pro reveal, and then it just did not go their way.
No, no, I would 100% agree with that. That would be my read on that as well. And so this little sandwich of that in there, and then they do what they should have done 2 weeks prior and reveal an actual title that was going to be on a new title that was going to be on the PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
And that was the long-awaited. See, I want to say for the record, for our audience today, that the naysaying I got of that Ghost of a Ghost of Tsushima sequel was nowhere near ready yet. I will say I was right.
Yeah, you were.
I knew it was coming. I'm like, see, Sucker Punch usually takes some time with their games. No
Yep.
denying that. But Ghost of Tsushima was such a big hit that like it's I can imagine that development timeline was much more smoother because of it.
Well, it was
Um,
probably I would say it was smoother, and it was like they got the green light for that very
exactly.
quickly, right? Like that
Yeah.
that was like, okay, Sucker Punch, you're doing Ghost 2, not Infamous, or whatever else they might have been like floating around. They were
When your
like,
game
okay.
when your game starts to outshine the PR of Last of Us Part 2,
Yes.
uh I think that's a good sign for a green light
Which,
of a project.
in fairness, that strikes me as more of like a um like part of me wonders if that's just because The Last of Us was like kind of a known quantity,
Mm-hmm.
um, versus like Ghost of Tsushima was like Sucker Punch's first new IP since Infamous. Um,
Yeah.
and before that, they had made a bunch of Sly Cooper games, right? So it was like,
Mm-hmm.
this was like their first sort of. Um, it was a very like kind of unique thing, um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I don't know. I mean, Ghost of Yote looks great. Um, I will say I am in the camp that's like, man, I do wish they would make another Infamous game, like that.
Yeah, I'm in
That
that camp too.
that franchise getting left behind is a shame because
Mm-hmm.
Second Son had a lot of really good ideas. And the story was a little bit like, okay, not like all the way there. I never actually played through one and two, um, but I know that there
One and
was
two
like a
were great.
yeah, yeah. No, I've always heard really good things. My dad actually played the first Infamous game, believe it or not, back when it was like
Mm-hmm.
new-ish. But anyways, there was some like connective tissue in the story there and stuff, and like they tried some unique things with like the power sets where it wasn't just elements this time around. Um, and I thought that was really cool. So I am like a little sad about that, but it's hard to deny how breathtaking Ghost of Yote looks, even in that small
Absolutely.
teaser. Like it's just like it looks incredible.
And it's interesting. We're getting a new protagonist,
Yeah,
and we're getting a new setting,
yeah,
and I'm very I'm like I'm I was curious on how they would do the sequel. You know what I mean? Like I knew it was inevitable that it would happen. I just didn't know how they would do it.
yeah.
And I mean, this isn't like a we don't know how much of a direct sequel, right? This could be its own spin-off game for all we know,
Well, I think it's
right?
my understanding is that this is like it's a Final Fantasy style sequel where it's
And
not
that's what I'm kind of thinking
like
as well.
that like the like it takes place in a new age in Japan. I don't remember what year off the top, but it's like a different period. And it's in a new location.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's like um, it very much strikes me as like, okay, not much is going to connect the two
Hmm.
games, aside uh, from like mechanics and maybe like a reference or two here and there, like oh, what's a good like the Persona games? They're not connected to each other, but
Hmm.
they're not like you could play four without playing three, but
Right.
like there are like references. Like one of the characters from four is like on a poster in five, so like it's like okay, these are like in the same world, but it's not. Um, it's not like you don't have to want to play the other, which to me is like, okay, I bounced off of Ghost of Tsushima after the first like main.
Area.
Yeah, I guess. Like I don't remember. I actually don't remember how far I got in that game, but it was like, I kind of like got a bit sick of the enemy design of that game. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I just want to do the samurai duels. I don't want to deal with these guys constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, if they touch up because speaking of Sony Studios, right? Like Insomniac going from Spider-Man 1 to Miles Morales to Spider-Man 2, like it's
Mm-hmm.
undeniable that Spider-Man 2 just is the more fun game to play, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it like I really like every Spider-Man game they've done, but 2 is
Mm-hmm.
like, if I'm going to play a Spider-Man game, I want it to feel like 2.
Yeah.
Um so, Ghost of Yote really has an opportunity to like be that like
Yeah.
definitive experience. And often it's the second game in a trilogy, or in a set of 3 that really like kicks it up, right? Like really,
Mm-hmm.
um like even Last of Us Part 2, uh having not played it, the word is like, regardless of what you feel about the story, the mechanics have been really refined, right? Like they
Mm-hmm.
did do a whole lot there. So Sony Studios are really good on iterative game design. It just like, you don't want to um you don't want to get like too samey, but
Mm-hmm.
I doubt they run that risk, especially since they're like got a new protagonist and a new setting and all this stuff. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's a really, like, the fact that it's even coming out in 2025, right?
Yeah.
I was expecting like a reveal. I wasn't expecting like the reveal of, you know, um, I wasn't expecting it to be that soon. But it is kind of nice to know that that's probably the next Sony game that's on the horizon.
Yeah.
Um, thought it'd be Wolverine, but I don't think. I think we got some time before Wolverine
Yeah.
comes around. I I still was a firm believer that with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out, that they would have revealed it at that time, but they did not. So here we are. Um, and I guess that's a good way to segue into the fact that, yeah, I mean, I might have been feeling pretty good on the fact that Ghost of Yotai was revealed at the end of the State of Play, really saved the showcase.
Yeah.
But it did not go my way as far as TGS goes. No, as a matter of fact, it went real bad into the fact that I'm going to have to do this now. This is this is going to I don't know if this immediately shows up on your end when I do this, but it's time to um it's 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 time. Let's all just say, I was wrong last year, and I've been wrong for a year straight on Kingdom Hearts 4. So it is officially time to change the Discord avatar. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
It has been changed.
I like it.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah,
know if you
it,
saw it,
it did
but
show
yeah.
up. It did show up. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah. No, it's absolutely time. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I hear that.
clown makeup is here. That is for sure.
Yeah. I think the rule is now you have to keep that Discord avatar until Kingdom Hearts 4 is revealed.
And that's what I was thinking the same thing. It's time. So,
And then you
yeah,
can
I
get
definitely
Drip Sora.
yeah, exactly. The new version. Exactly. Yeah, that I think that would be yeah, from the next trailer. That's what
Yeah.
I'll do. Is I'll just take a direct screenshot of whatever it is, and then I'll make that the avatar.
Yes, I like it. You know what? In solidarity, I won't do a clown makeup thing because I've been surprisingly uh, uh, cautious about my optimism, but I will, assuming Riku is in the next Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer.
Hmm.
I'll grab a screenshot of him, and I'll be your counterpart in
Okay.
the Discord uh, avatar game.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, it who knows when that's going to happen. But
Yeah.
I wanted to set the record straight that yeah. Yeah, I don't even know anymore.
I mean, now you can just like say like, yeah, Kingdom Hearts 4 is going to be at the Xbox partner showcase tomorrow. You could just say that, and now like
Hmm.
the cloud makeup's already on. You don't have to do anything.
That's true. It's true. I yeah. It is also before I forget, credit to Jeff Keighley for that. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah, I forgot he
this
was the
is
one
the
who made
direct
it. Yeah,
image from
or
that.
I don't know if
Uh,
he made it, but he posted it.
yeah, at least that's where I got it from. But I gotta say, like, I've been holding on to that for like weeks now, and I've been waiting for that moment. Um, Sadly. So uh, yeah, we didn't get a lot of reveals out of TGS, but
Yeah.
um, one there's one last reveal that we didn't talk about that I think deserves some time in the spotlight. That we kind of waited. This made more sense as far as the order of the show, which we'll talk about. But yeah, there was another big reveal in that state of play, and it wasn't like Xbox E3 showcase type of uh, reveal for this actor, but it was very much like a oh sweet type of moment. At least
Yep.
that's how it was for me. Um, the moment I heard his voice, I was like, oh, they're actually doing it.
Yeah, me too.
We're getting a bonus. Is it a Is it a DLC or a bonus level?
It is a DLC level.
That's what I thought. Okay, so we're getting a DLC of the Sonic movie that's coming out this year with Shadow being voiced by the actor in the movie, Keanu Reeves. They got Keanu
They
Reeves.
got Keanu Reeves for Shadow Generations, which is
That's right.
insane.
Which is like,
I yeah.
sell me on it more.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Sonic has always had like celebrity music
Hmm.
people, right? Like they got like Akon to do a Sweet Dreams remix for Sonic 06, which is like
Hmm.
crazy. They got Zebrahead for Sonic 06. They got a lot of people for Sonic 06 actually. But like like, you know, on the music side,
Mm-hmm.
they've always had like celebrity, pretty high profile, maybe not like, you know, not like Taylor Swift tier, but you know, pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or not close, but you know, pretty big. Um, but never in terms of like the voice cast has there really been um you know, the like celebrity push, um you know, partly because uh you know, back in the 90s when Sonic first started to get voice acting, celebrities just didn't do video games. It wasn't a
Mm-mm.
thing. um and then Sonic kind of became more of like a dub, like an anime dub kind of situation. Um, and then in the 2010s, it was like, okay, we got a new cast, but it was still like kind of anime dub adjacent. Um, and then there was that whole thing where like the Sonic cast thought they were all leaving, but
Mm-hmm.
they weren't. And during that time, I was speculating like, oh, is Ben Schwartz gonna be Sonic now? Like, is he just
Right,
gonna
right, right, right.
take over the role? And that didn't turn out to be the case. And
Mm-hmm.
I have I have mixed feelings about that, but uh, I'm willing to uh,
It's hard.
yeah, it's
At some
yeah,
points, it's like I can't get Ben Schwartz
yeah,
voice. I can't get it out of my head whenever I see any other form of,
yeah,
of because it's like I don't know, he just plays the role so well that it's like
yeah,
now it's kind of like hard to get it out. But
yeah.
at least when I played
Whereas
Frontiers,
yeah.
it was good. Like
Yeah, I mean Roger Craig Smith is a very talented voice actor. I
right.
think he played Batman in Arkham Origins, I think. Um,
Hmm.
and you know,
Yeah,
he was
I
the
mean,
voice of Captain America for a really long time as well.
yeah. Don't get me wrong. I think he did a great job. As a matter of fact, I got used to it very quickly. But like
Yeah,
it's just it took a minute because Ben Schwartz does a great job
yeah.
at it that it's hard.
Well, and Ben Schwartz is like, you know, his voice and kind of line delivery is a lot more sort of like what you'd expect from Sonic, whereas like Roger Craig Smith is like um he's got a lot deeper voice. He speaks really
Hmm.
low in Frontiers actually, even compared
Yeah.
to like Generations and Colors. It's like, oh wow, this is very deep compared to uh, Ben Schwartz or even Ryan Drummond and Jason
Hmm.
Griffith. But yeah, I think it is just like a kind of an expectations thing, right? Like where you're like, oh, I expect Sonic to sound a certain way, um, in part just because of like the character's design, and so when he doesn't sound that way, it's kind of like it's kind of weird. I actually feel really similarly about Kirk Thornton as Shadow the Hedgehog,
Hmm.
where I'm like, he's doing a great job with what's there, but I'm so used to Shadow having a Keanu esque
Hmm.
voice. You know, not that he was played by Keanu back in '05,
Right.
but you
Yeah.
know, like that kind of voice. You know, the deeper, more sort of, uh, I guess like baritone is kind of the
Hmm.
word I would use. Um, so all that's to say, it is really cool that they got Keanu to play Shadow in a single level of Shadow Generations. Um, and I mean, yeah, this has really been the year of Shadow. Um, and I couldn't be happier. I mean, if you had told me in in 2016, I was like, man, I'm never going to get a cool version of Shadow ever again. Right? That stuff is all in the past. And I could live with it, right? But it was like, man, we're never going to get something cool from Shadow ever again. And now I'm like, and then 2020 Sonic movie rolls around and I'm like, there's hope. And
Yeah,
now we're here, right? Like I remember, I think I remember speculating. I think we went to McDonald's after we went to see the Sonic movie. And I think I remember speculating,
I remember this too.
Yeah, I think I remember speculating, I think the second movie is going to be Tails and Knuckles. And then movie 3 will be Shadow, right? And I ended up being dead on. Maybe it might not have been exactly that, but it was kind of that was kind of my the framework I was kind of thinking about, because movie Sonic has a very different we've never really gotten Sonic's origin story in the games. He's kind of like a he's like Mario, or he's like Mickey Mouse, right? Like he's just always been there, right? Like he's always existed. He's just a person. So getting more of an origin story where he's got a dead mom and all this stuff, right? I was like, man, that's just Shadow's backstory, right? That's just with a little bit of tweaking, the thematic parallels here are staggering, actually. So it's okay, I would have been more surprised if they hadn't done Shadow for movie 3, because I think that's a really good ending to the trilogy. I think it would have been,
narratively it makes sense.
Yeah, I think narratively it actually makes a lot more sense than people are willing to admit. But yeah. Anyways, yeah, Keanu and Shadow Generations is pretty cool. That we will not have we won't be able to talk about it as soon as Shadow Generations comes out, because that level comes out in December. I think it comes out a week before the movie. Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna lie, when the trailer popped up, I'm like, oh, am I supposed to be watching this right now? Is this going to give me spoilers?
Yeah.
That was a little concern, a minor concern. I knew they wouldn't, but kind of one of those type of things of yeah, I just was cautious of oh no, am I going to start putting 2 and 2 together of when this takes place in the film, type of thing. But yeah, I mean, that was a pretty cool reveal. I don't think any. It's kind of like how the Stellar Blade reveal was. It makes sense. I just don't think I saw it coming. You know what I mean? Both really good reveals on that, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think the Sonic one was a little bit more expected, because it was oh yeah, if you're gonna deal with DLC, that'd be really fun to tie in. But
yeah,
I mean, let's be honest, there's been 2 other Sonic movies and they have not had any tie-ins to the other games. I mean, that's not like it's been required. I mean,
the movies have done well enough on their own.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
they're fine.
Yeah. I don't think there was, especially in development timeline, any point where that would have made sense for the other two. But like,
Yeah.
um, but this makes sense.
Yeah.
It's good timing. But
Yes,
uh,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know, that was kind of like a little bit of like, as far as news topics goes, that was about it for about a couple weeks there.
Yeah.
It's been pretty
And
slow. I mean, that makes sense because we're
yeah.
coming up on the holiday season. This is
Yeah.
probably the slowest news story season, and more
Yeah.
this is where we get fed type of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and
and
also, to elaborate just a little bit, we don't talk about everything, right? Like
no,
we don't talk about everything. Uh, we could talk about the Tron game that got announced, right? But
mhm,
like unless it was like a big studio and it was triple
right,
A
exactly.
open world or something like that, it would be like this game's
With
not going to make
Keanu
a big
Reeves,
yeah, with Keanu Reeves, exactly. Like unless it was like that, we're sort of
they
more focused on
they
like
get
big
Jeff Bridges in it. Like
Jeff Bridges. They got Jared Leto.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
uh, like that we could talk about that, but we wouldn't have much to say.
Hmm.
And I think it's more fun if we limit ourselves to stuff that we really just have strong opinions on.
Hmm.
So it's some weeks, some weeks you might be, what do you mean? There's all sorts of stuff that got announced, and
Exactly.
then we would be like, well, we don't really have a lot to say about those things.
Right.
Like there
Um.
were, for example, right? I could have
Uh-huh.
talked about every trailer I've seen for uh, shoot. I could talk about every trailer. I could have talked about every trailer for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, right?
Hmm.
And been like, oh, they announced this character, that character, and that character, and that character, which I care about that, but like, what am I gonna say about it other than they're in the game, right? So like,
Right.
that's it's not like if they had announced like, oh, they're putting Sonic the Hedgehog in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, then
Exactly.
we
It's not
then
like
we
a
would talk
smash
about it.
reveal.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
we would talk about it, right? But other than that, it's we kind of it's what are we going to talk about? We're not going to talk about the Nintendo alarm clock.
Yeah.
So just to elaborate on that a little
I
bit
for
more.
it's funny that that came into existence last week, and my very much thoughts were okay, and forgot that it existed until just now. And yeah, that was a good callback.
I
It was
will
funny.
say, I did see a meme like so there was a meme that went around a little while ago that was like somebody predicting like so um it was like the N64 was a hit, the GameCube was a failure, the Wii was a hit, the Wii U was a failure, and then the Switch has been a runaway success, right? So like the next thing is like, oh, who knows what's gonna happen with the
Yeah, and
Switch
then you
2,
can.
right? And then later it's like, oh, they announced the alarm clock, and so it's the Wii was a success, the Wii U was a failure, the Switch was a success, the alarm clock is a failure, and that and it was all they purposefully released the alarm clock to bomb so that the the Switch 2 will be a massive success. And I was like, if that's true, well played, Nintendo. Um, yeah, but yeah, we're very much like focused uh on like big picture like industry stuff, and also like, oh, we stuff that like is more up our alley, right? Like um there really is just so much news all the time. Um but I don't think it's very useful for us to, basically just read off Gematsu or, other places. Um, but yeah, it won't be like, I don't think it'll be like every uh news story will get skipped. It's just like, oh, make sure. Yeah, I just think it's we're not a news podcast, we're a discussion podcast. So we're more likely to talk about stuff that we have stuff to say, right? Like, so we have stuff to say about Ghost of Yote, we have stuff to say about Stellar Blade, we have stuff to say about Shadow. Yeah. So, yeah.
Alrighty. Well, the cats just striked again, so I had to step away there for a brief moment. But we're back at it. Okay. Um. So let's uh yeah, let's go back to where we were. So as far as like it's been kind of a little bit slow for the past few weeks. As far as news goes, and then I wouldn't say this is breaking news, but like it's news today.
Yeah,
We
as of
we get
recording.
news. We get we just got news that of a new casting announcement for a game that you know having a first. It's a first own like game in the series,
Yep.
and was a pleasant surprise in a wonderful showcase that actually really stood out to me the most during this
Yeah.
Xbox during the Xbox showcase, and that was Clair Obscur Expedition 33. The game looked fun. It looked totally up my alley. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, just to be quickly summarize my thought of that game, like it looks like honestly, I can kind of equate it to Stellar Blade. Like, it looks like this is totally up my alley. That like this is a game that like um, is on my radar. Um, did they set a release date today? I know they set a
No.
release year.
No,
Okay,
spring
so
2025.
okay, so yeah, it was essentially the same timeline I thought. So it would be the spring 2025. As of right now, I don't have a lot going during that time as far as video game releases go. Personal events, though, that's a pretty stacked time of year for me. Not gonna lie,
Yes.
I might get nothing done in those few months, because it'll be a very special time, and and it's totally worth it, and I can't wait for it. But this could not come out at a worse time. if it's coming out in spring, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could be very much a Stellar Blade situation where timeline doesn't hit right, so I probably will wait to go on for it to go on sale. Needless to say, that should I guess my point is that should not point out that should not negate from the fact that this game looks really good.
Yeah.
And then they announced the cast list. And I already knew Ben Starr was going to be in it. Like, amazing job in Final Fantasy 16. Like,
Yeah.
I was already sold at this point. But, then you start to throw in the actual cast of it. And we're just gonna pull it up real quick.
I have it pulled up if you want me to start listing some names.
Yeah, if you want to list them, go ahead.
So, one of them, if you've played Elden Ring, if you've played Baldur's Gate 3, you will know Jennifer English. She was the voice of Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3. I'm just looking at just trying to make sure I do justice to some of these actors. Kirsty Ryder was in The Sandman on Netflix, and she's also been in she was in Sifu, if you remember that game. Shala Nix was she was in The Old Guard, which was like a Charlize Theron movie.
Okay.
And then also she played Farida Nazari in Cyberpunk 2077: The Phantom Liberty. And she's also done a bunch of video games. She was in Diablo 4. I almost listed The Lord of the Rings Gollum, but I don't think she would be happy to hear me talking about that. She was also in Baldur's Gate 3, actually. But then, and those are great actresses. Jennifer English as Shadowheart is really good in what I've played of Baldur's Gate 3. And yeah, but then, you get the goat of performance capture in Andy Serkis.
The Andy Serkis.
The Andy Serkis.
I don't think he's ever done a video game before.
I don't think that's true.
Well, maybe
if somehow you don't know who Andy Serkis is, that's not true. You do know who he is. He was Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies. Serkis filmography, television, video. He played Gollum in the Return of the Ring video game, the Return of the King video games, and a bunch of other Lord of the Rings games. And he's actually done a bunch, not a whole lot, but he's done mostly, in fairness, mostly Lord of the Rings games, reprising Gollum, or they use the lines from the movie. So he's he has a credit, but he didn't but but some of them he did actually do voice acting for. And then he also did Heavenly Sword, which is sort of like the precursor to the Hellblade series. He was in that game, and he was like the mocap director for that. So yeah, like he's been in the game space for a while, and the game space has had a very close relationship to the like performance capture
Absolutely, yeah.
stuff. So I think that's definitely a part of it. So and also, he also did an audiobook series for The Lord of the Rings. So I actually just finished a couple of weeks ago. I finished Fellowship of the Ring,
Gotcha.
and it's great. I think he's really good. Gollum has not appeared yet, so I'm curious to know if he does the voice or not.
Gotcha. That would be pretty funny
That would be
if he
pretty
did.
fun. Yeah,
I mean, I can imagine in his like recording sessions, he's got to be like, "Can I just do it? Can I just do it?" Like, I
I
can't,
I
I can't
I
do it right without doing. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, he does. He doesn't exactly like change his voice for the other characters, but like you can
Uh,
kind of tell who's speaking based on how he's talking,
how he,
right? Like
gotcha.
he has a different like I would say he voice acts for a majority of the cast. He just doesn't necessarily. It's just not like he doesn't exactly have like he doesn't have like a chameleon voice the way some people do,
Mhm.
where he could like just he doesn't have the ability to like sound like Kate Blanchett, right? So like Galadriel
Oh no.
doesn't sound like Kate Blanchett, but like he does like speak more soft and in certain ways. So
Yeah, you got to report back to the podcast on this one.
yes,
Does
I
Andy
will.
Serkis actually play Gollum or not?
Does he
And
reprise his role as Gollum in the Lord of the Rings audiobooks? Um, but then Andy Serkis also just to glaze a little bit more, also Caesar in the Planet of the Apes movies.
oh yeah,
Um,
gosh, I can't believe I forgot about that. Yeah.
have you seen those movies?
Oh, I've seen Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, but I did not see War for the Planet of the Apes. That's a tangent for
Yeah.
for a different day.
Yes.
But I
Um,
have my reason.
okay. Okay. So yeah, all around like excellent actor. He's a great actor in his own right, but then, he's arguably the greatest mocap performance capture actor
Absolutely.
working right now. And partly that's just due to the fact that he was there first, right? Like he was kind of the first. He kind of helped. He was kind of the like guinea pig for a lot of the like stuff that would go on to become very standard in future productions. But then, close to Caleb and I's heart, they also announced Charlie Cox for the game. He's playing a character called Gustav, and he's Charlie Cox. If you don't know that name, he played Daredevil in the Netflix show. So, and Caleb, I think you and I would probably count that as like a top 3 Marvel project between the two of us.
Oh, easily.
Easy, yeah,
Easily.
I choosing between like 2010 era MCU stuff is kind of hard, like because you know a lot has been said about the lows of the MCU, but the highs were really high.
Yeah.
And Daredevil was one of those
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
nothing got better than Daredevil did.
Like I without a doubt, like it is the like I compare the seasons for Daredevil, especially season 1 to season 1 and 3, I should
Yeah.
say. Season 1 and 3 to the perfect formula for television.
Yeah.
The perfect formula. Like, I mean, that's no disregard to 2, because a lot of people gripe on season 2, but it is
It's
just as good.
still
It's just a little bit messier. That's
yeah,
it.
it lacks focus. And I think the thing that happened, you could kind of see what happened with the Netflix series, where it was like you could kind of tell they were trying a little bit too hard to emulate what was going on in the movies. And so they were like they kept like with season 2 they did a lot of setup of the hand, and then like uh and then there was like Luke Cage, and then like after that you got like Luke Cage and Iron Fist, and both of those were like heavily. I guess Luke Cage was maybe a bit more, but Luke Cage was like very standalone, right? Like it was a very
Luke Cage
like
was set up with Jessica Jones.
yeah,
So like that setup was done
in a different show,
prior.
yeah.
But yeah.
But even then, right? Like the Luke Cage, like season 1 of Luke Cage was very, very much a standalone story. It didn't have like Jessica Jones was in it, I think, but there wasn't like a whole lot. But then Iron Fist. Part of the reason that first season is such a mess is because it was just all set up, right? It was basically it was all just like, yeah, we're just setting up for this.
Yeah, the Iron Fist season
Defenders.
1 was very much the same treatment Captain America, the first Avenger, was. Like you could clearly tell that this is like, yeah, is it a Iron Fist story? Yeah, is it a Captain America story? Absolutely. But this is also 50% of it is a prelude
Yeah.
to what's coming. So
which
I mean,
first Avenger I would say holds up better.
Absolutely.
But and Defenders, I like Defenders, but I'm certainly not going to say it's without its problems. But yeah, it's and then after Defenders, yeah, like Daredevil season 3 is spotless. Like
perfection.
Yeah, like some of the best television I've ever watched. And then Charlie Cox was not in this, but I just want to get on my soapbox again and say that Iron Fist season 2 is actually an awesome season of television. So I it's not my favorite thing in the world, but it was that season was a lot of fun. And I'm sad that they and the actress who played Colleen Wing. Do you know that she turned down a role in Shang-Chi specifically because she wanted to return? Like, she was like, I'm holding out to be able to return as Colleen Wing. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I hope she does. And, now that Charlie Cox is back, now that Charlie Cox and, the entire, basically the whole cat, like John Bernthal is back as the Punisher. I didn't think that was going to happen.
No.
I love John Bernthal. So yeah. Anyways, we love Charlie Cox.
Yeah. Now, granted. Oh, go ahead.
We're kind of biased, but I do think that's pretty cool casting. Yeah.
Now, granted, I don't think he's going to be playing Daredevil.
No, yeah, that's definitely not true.
He's going to have his full-on British accent in this in this one. Like I'm actually I don't know that I haven't watched the trailer. I haven't watched any of the footage of him, even if he doesn't show up. I mean, does show up in it. I'm imagining he's playing a more energetic character. I guess that's a way to put it.
It's weird. Claire Obscure, from the trailer, looks very like. It seems very much like a medieval. Um, like medieval, like British fantasy kind of thing, Tolkien-esque,
Exactly.
right? Like not necessarily exactly like Tolkien. I think the trailers sort of beget a little bit of a more, like, a maybe a bit of a sci-fi bent, but uh yeah, it's I think, in the description it says, Charlie Cox as Gustav, a resourceful and dedicated engineer who devotes his final year of life to defeating the Paintress and reclaiming a future for Lumiere's children. So, that's a very, like, um that's like Shulk, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
not dissimilar to a fairly standard RPG
Mm-hmm.
protagonist um thing, right? It's and then going down to Ben Starr, it's like Ben Starr is playing Verso, who is a dangerous stranger, uh and is apparently an outsider of unknown origins who closely tracks the expedition. So, these are probably not typecasts necessarily. Um, Ben Starr as mysterious stranger is not my first. I mean, I'm sure he has a great voice for it, but it's not like my first my first casting choice for
Mm-hmm.
Ben Starr. So, like, I'm this is like a sort of cherry on top for me, right? Like, of a game that is already extremely promising. Um, yeah, and it's they've been like, yeah, we're taking after Persona, we're doing all this stuff, and you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of very clearly see that in the, like, menu design and the um and all that. So yeah, I'm even more excited than I was yesterday.
Right.
I,
Exactly.
I, I was I was already looking forward to Clear Obscure yesterday, and now I'm even more like, okay, bring it on. Maybe it's possible I'm playing Claire Obscure and then, like, a month later I'm watching Daredevil, right? Like,
It is possible. Or yeah, I don't know the timeline for Daredevil. I know it's 2025, but I mean, with the Disney Plus shows, I've been very much like they'll announce it and then I'll believe it's coming out then, because it's like sometimes it's like they'll announce a project and be like, okay, now I'm going off on a tangent again, but they'll announce the project and be like, this is our general timeline, and then we don't see the light of day for two more years on a project. Like, for instance, Ironheart.
yeah,
That thing's been filmed for like a year now.
yeah,
Like, it's been done. So I don't know. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it could
No,
be
I
before the
agree.
end of the year. It could be early 2025 for all I know. But Okay.
I just want to kind of amend what you're saying. Wikipedia seems to think that the first episode will release in March of 2025. So
See, yeah. Oh, for Daredevil or Ironheart?
Daredevil.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, not Ironheart.
Which
Yeah,
would which would make sense. I think this is weird to say, but like I think season 2 of Daredevil's premiered in March. One of the seasons premiered in March. That's for sure. Don't ask me why I
I
know
don't
that,
remember.
but I do.
Yeah,
Like I don't know why, but yeah. Okay. So point is, it's a really impressive cast, and honestly, for House, I mean, it's a it's not like a small title, but it's a small enough title that
it's well, it's also that studio's first title.
right, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's not like a well-known studio. Like
Yeah,
for instance, like I'm thinking I'm thinking exactly like Keanu Reeves with Cyberpunk. Like CD Projekt Red had already established a name for themselves for, what I mean, getting
yeah.
actors in on those projects. It's interesting how they got them in. I'm very excited to see how the final product goes for that game. Um. So yeah, I mean, so that kind of concludes a little bit of our news for the show. Um, Ezra, I know I
Yes.
haven't been able to finish any games as of yet. There was, it, I won't go into details as to why I couldn't, but there was a legitimate reason. I had one, but I couldn't. I wasn't able to do it.
It was out of your control.
It was out of my control. So, yeah, sadly timelines didn't add up for it. But the uh, you got not one but two reviews for us today. So
Yes.
I'm very interested. I don't think I've heard of this first title.
Yeah.
Uh, if you want to, Ezra, take it away.
Yeah.
I'm interested
So
to hear about this.
um sorry, my dad's distracting me in the background.
Okay.
Um so last month I got the opportunity to well, I guess this month I completed it, but last month I got the opportunity to review a game called Key Locker, developed by Munana Games. I do. I don't know if I've talked about this a lot on the podcast yet, but I do some writing for a website called RP Gamer, and so I wrote my review for them. I'll have it in the description of the video. And yeah, I don't want to. I don't. I This is not an RP Gamer podcast, so I don't want to kind of. I don't want to like go over everything in the review in super high detail because that would be, I got the game through them. It just wouldn't feel right to me.
Right.
I will say,
I totally understand that.
but I think there's some stuff. I can still talk about what I think about it. So it's sort of a. Have you ever played like a Paper Mario or a Mario and Luigi? Caleb?
No, I've seen like gameplay of it.
Okay.
But I've actually never played those.
You know how they're like turn-based RPGs, but they have like real time, like you have to like time your button presses, and you have to um you like block and stuff like that by like timing it to when the attack will hit you, right? Like you've seen that stuff. Um Keylocker
Hmm.
is basically that meets like the grid system of like a strategy RPG, right?
Hmm.
So like you've got like positioning, and then you've got um like uh most of the real time elements are rhythm game inspired in some way. So like there's
Okay.
um so like some of it is just like uh what's a good it's all just like button presses on your controller, but it's some of it'll be like, oh, press this combination of buttons correctly. Some of it's like, okay, do um react to a certain button that comes on screen, kind of thing. So it's sort of like that's the kind of bent. And I would say like the from a combat perspective, the game is actually really successful. There um it has a cool kind of um like physical damage, magic damage thing where um you have like this it's like an EP bar, which is it's like an MP bar in any other, like in like a Final Fantasy, where it's like
Gotcha.
where um you can spend EP to sort of like augment certain attacks, or like charge them up and stuff. Um, but there are also attacks that do damage to the EP bar, right? So like you can prevent your enemies from doing their big attacks. Um, so it has like a cool sort of uh, what's the word? It has a cool sort of back and forth where you're constantly like looking at all of the different health bars on the screen, because if your EP bar goes down, you don't die, but if somebody uses an EP attack on you while you have no EP, it will do damage to your health bar, right? So like it's you're sort of constantly balancing all of these resources, um, and so it's not necessarily about like it's resource management in the sense of like you have to manage exactly what you're going to do each turn, whereas like you don't there are like items and stuff you can use, but you're not going to find yourself like relying on them. So yeah, the combat's really cool. Um, Unfortunately, some of the like timing stuff feels very
Hmm.
inconsistent throughout. Like it's like I felt like I couldn't get a good consistent, like, okay, I hit the button at this time when during the attack for it to do all of the damage or something like that.
Hmm.
So that was frustrating, because it's one of those things where it's like, man, if it wasn't like this combat system would be a 10 out of 10.
Hmm.
But if you could get past that, I think it works. The presentation, so it's got that like Mario and Luigi, Paper Mario
Hmm.
uh, gameplay. The presentation is very much like a cyberpunk kind of vibe. Um, very much like very like weird, in a good way, like in a sort of like no character looks exactly like right. And there's a reason. I think there's a it I think that's intentional. um and the art is amazing. The pixel art looks really good. And most of the animations really sort of uh, are really distinct, which is good. And if they fade into the background, it's usually like it doesn't matter. Um,
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at
so
some images of the game. Yeah, I get you. Yeah, it's a pretty unique art style,
yeah, well, and
and
it's the cool thing is that like it has a ton of different like biomes. So
mhm.
like there's a lot of like variety in what you see. It doesn't all just like I think one of the problems that cyberpunk stuff can sometimes run into is everything like kind of blending
Looks the
together.
same. Yeah,
Like that's kind of like my vibe with Cyberpunk 2077 is like I'm just like every piece of footage I see of it is looks exactly the same as the last piece of
yeah,
footage I saw of it.
I could
Um,
agree with that.
so Keylocker does a good job of avoiding that. Um, uh, so all that stuff, and then there's also like they have a legit like Guitar Hero mini game, like actual Guitar Hero.
Hmm.
Um, but you do it with like the with R1 L1 R2 L2. Um, and so that's cool. Unfortunately, the inconsistent timings kind of carry over to that, but I'm also willing to accept that that was maybe a skill issue. Um, yeah, I mean,
Mm,
uh, you know, uh, I gave the game a 3.5, which is good on the RP gamer scale.
hmm.
Um, and uh, and I think it's definitely like I think it's worth playing if like it really appeals to you, if like that kind of thing really appeals
Hmm.
to you. I think for anybody who I think it's hard to recommend it. I think if you go in and you're like, I want a really good story, I think you're gonna not have the best time. But yeah, I go into that a little bit more
Gotcha.
detail on in the
Hmm.
review. And again, I don't want to like I'm not gonna read my review on the on the podcast.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I again I think I want to stress I do think it's a good game. I think it has some problems that could use some ironing out, but you know I feel that way about like most games I play. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. I mean, it sounds intriguing. The Yeah, it sounds like it's got a lot of mashups. Um,
yes,
of style that I think can be very unique.
yeah,
Um,
I
but
yeah. So
oh,
I'll just for example, um, my review doesn't have this blurb anymore. It has a more normal blurb. But my blurb going in uh, was Keylocker has a lot of things going for it and is a genuinely good experience with the right expectations. But what should those expectations be? And what does the Guitar Hero meets Cyberpunk meets Mario and Luigi meets Chrono Trigger JRPG bring to the table? Right? So like there's a lot there, right? There's a lot of like influences in Keylocker, and those really do shine through. And you could argue that those are like, that's what they executed the best. It's a bunch of the other stuff that I kind of take issue with, I guess.
Yeah, no,
But, yeah.
I get it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you said you're going to have the article in the description, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Definitely give that review a look. I actually pulled it up as we were talking. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty fun. And yeah, I mean, hats off to you. That's pretty cool.
Thank
Just
you. Yeah.
so I think that's pretty special to note on here. You know, that's just incredible. So I'm very excited to read more about it once we get off the air, because I definitely want to give you the support, and I think
Oh, I
everybody
appreciate
should
it. Yeah.
definitely give you the support on that. So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it was definitely very exciting to um to sort of get the opportunity to play this game pre-release.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a bunch of stuff that happened that made it so I couldn't make the embargo, unfortunately. But yeah,
Oh,
I was
gotcha.
like, oh, but I was still like, I'm gonna finish this game. I wanna see
Mm-hmm.
it through. And yeah, it was a solid title, solid title. Happy to have done it. Uh, yeah, so that's Keylocker. That's pretty much everything I have to say about Keylocker.
So yeah, I mean, speaking of solid titles,
Yeah.
I've been hearing good things about this next one.
Yes. So this is not a game that I reviewed for RP Gamer, mostly because it's not an RPG. So Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Um, Basically, Budokai Tenkaichi 4. If you ever played, those games, um, oh, where to start? So it's Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is a very important franchise to me. I think we talked about Akira Toriyama's passing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like earlier this year.
Honestly, I think it was only like a few months ago.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. I think maybe it was like end of May, early June, or something like that, if memory serves. But yeah, like a very special franchise, very influential franchise, and it has a very sort of storied history in the game space, right? Like, a lot of I would say there's a good portion of Dragon Ball's fan base that knows what happens in Dragon Ball because they played it in a game, right? Like I would count myself in that in that group of people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I watched Dragon Ball Z Kai and stuff. So like I watched the show. I absorbed what happened, but the games were kind of my first introduction. And Sparking Zero is feels very much like kind of a culmination of everything that's kind of happened in the Dragon Ball game space in the last like 20 years or so.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it's really fun. It's got it's a pretty standard um 3D arena fighter, right? Like you're flying
Mm-hmm.
around. The combos aren't very complicated. Um, it's not Street Fighter levels of complexity, right? Like it's a
Mm-hmm.
um, very casual focused, and I think that's a good thing. I don't think every fighting game needs to be hyper competitive. Um, so that's like kind of the core of the gameplay, and it's definitely like the most refined it's ever been. Um, there's an argument that this is the best a Dragon Ball game has ever looked, and I would certainly entertain said argument. I'm not sure it's looks better than Fighters, but it gets pretty close. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then you know, to me, Dragon Ball games kind of live and die by what modes are available, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it have a lot of features? Um, does it have a robust story mode? All that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Um, and I would say that was kind of the thing. I was like, yeah, Sparking Zero is going to be cool, but it's not going to have all that stuff that I want. It has
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff that you want and more. Um, it's got a story mode with a whole bunch of like they do like alternate history stuff with the series. So like it's sort of like what's a good example? What if what if Goku killed this guy instead of this guy? Is one of them, right? Like that, like they're in the series he kills Birder when he's fighting Birder and Jace, but what if instead he kills Jace, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't. Um,
Yeah, I remember. I remember hearing that it was going to be playing on that type of like
yeah,
what ifs.
but they go a lot like further with it, where it's like okay,
Mm-hmm.
they do like entire alternate storylines where like it's funny because all of Goku's are basically what if Goku went undefeated. That's basically all of Goku's what if storylines are what if Goku just didn't lose ever.
I get you.
Um, whereas like yeah, they do some different stuff in some of the other some of the other characters storylines, but then they have stuff like the tournament mode seems really robust. The online like net code, I was like genuinely surprised at how good it was.
Mm.
It works really well. And then to me the most impressive uh, thing that they did was they created this custom battle feature which is basically they basically give you the tools to make your own story mode battles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's like, if you wanted to do what's a you could do like uh you could do anything. People are doing stuff like I made one that was like Goku from Dragon Ball Super versus Goku from Dragon Ball GT, right? Like, and it was like uh and they did like and so they give you the ability to like create your own cutscenes
Really?
uh and like they have like event triggers based on conditions met during the battle. Like it really is like when you go into it, you're sort of like they have like a simple and normal uh like modes where like if you choose the simple one, it kind of like you kind of choose a few things and then it does the rest for you. If you do the normal edit mode, it is a little bit like opening up like Adobe Premiere, right? And being like, oh wow, there's like really a lot going on, and you've got like menus within menus within menus within menus, and it really is like it sounds like I'm exaggerating. It sounds like, okay, it's not as complicated as Adobe Premiere, and in some ways it's not, right? Like it's not the same. It's not. You don't need to like have technical knowledge to know what's going on, but it is genuinely like really impressive how robust this system is, because when I heard about it I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. But
It
I'm
does sound
sure,
really cool.
and it's one of those things where it's like I'm sure uh you know it's one of those things where it's like, oh, Mario Maker doesn't exist for other genres, right? Like you can't, it's kind of hard to make like uh it would be kind of hard to make like a level editor for an RPG, right? Or for a fighting game or something like that, right? But Dragon Ball really did that. And yeah, it's really fun. If I wasn't knee deep in metaphor right now, I'd probably be messing around with the custom battle feature. Um, yeah, I will say the one thing about Sparking Zero is the story mode. It does do like all the cool like what if stuff. Like that's definitely a highlight. Um, it kind of unfortunately doesn't do. I was kind of hoping that this would be the Dragon Ball game that I could point to people and say like, hey, you need to know what happens in Dragon Ball, go play this game, right? Because like I can do that because like you might not get like the whole, like all of the different like character moments and intricacies, but you will. But I always appreciate having an ability to get like a kind of a Cliff Notes version of any sort of long story like that. Because Dragon Ball is like, if you're gonna watch it, it's an investment, right? Like it's a lot of
Absolutely.
but again, I do think like I personally, and maybe this is just maybe this is a bit much, but to me, like Dragon Ball is like Star Wars tier in that, like, you know, everyone knows Luke, I am your father, right? Like in that way, I'm like, everybody ought to know Super Saiyan. Everybody should know about, should know about this stuff. And so like the sort of like ease of access thing, I was kind of hoping for that with Sparking Zero. But the way that the story mode is broken up, that doesn't really exist. It's sort of like by character. So it's like you don't really have a way of you kind of end up having to like connect the dots on like when certain things happen. And so unless you're like you already know what's going on, it's like, okay, you're gonna have like no idea what's happening,
Right, especially playing on what if scenarios too.
because some of the what ifs you could genuinely like stumble upon, and then it could be like, oh, that's just like, and then like you're playing it like, oh, that this is just what happens, and then suddenly you're like and then suddenly it kicks you out and you're like, oh, I've been off the main timeline for 3 fights and we just finished, and it's so there is a lot to like about the story mode, but I would not suggest this as like a stand-in for the
Like
anime.
Gotcha.
Which is, again, I think is unfortunate because, I always point to the Naruto Storm series as like, you don't get, again, you don't get everything, every detail. They change some stuff, right? Like, it's not 1-to-1, but you do get all of the important stuff. And the stuff that it does well, it does really well, right? So I was kind of hoping for that with Sparking Zero, and we didn't get that, and that's okay. But it's one of those things where it's like, Caleb, I know that you're not like super familiar with Dragon Ball, and again, like there really isn't a game like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot works, but that's like a 40-hour RPG, right? Like that's not
Right.
exactly like what you think of when you think of the Dragon Ball experience. So it's sort of hard to say, but yeah, Sparking Zero, cool game. Very very polished too, not like a whole lot wrong with it, which is good. And also, I think one of the biggest, I think actually it's probably the biggest roster in any Dragon Ball game. The only question would be whether or not Xenoverse 2, because Xenoverse 2 has like a lot of different like character kits basically, because that game's like an online I don't know how to describe it. It just has like a bunch of different like character kits and like versions, quote unquote, of characters, but it's not like they're super different from each other, so it's sort of hard to say like, okay, is this 10 versions of Goku, or is it one version of Goku on the character select screen? So it's so Xenoverse 2 might technically, if you want to be pedantic, beat out Sparking Zero, but even then, not by a lot. And Sparking Zero, the characters are all unique, even if it's just like, okay, one character transforms into this other character. Like they designate like Super Saiyan Goku as a different character from just regular Goku. But that makes sense because they have different move sets. So yeah, good game. I'm having fun with it.
That's awesome to hear. I mean, it's a pretty cool. Like it sounds like they did some pretty unique stuff as far as the game modes go, and
Yeah,
it's actually impressive. I'm surprised that I didn't really hear about like the create your own type thing prior to this. Um, because not that I was like paying attention to the game or anything. It was just more of like I was hearing, when I heard things about the game, it was like all I really heard was like it was going to be playing on what if scenarios.
yeah,
So like I didn't really hear about like, oh, you get to actually like create them too, which I think is a really
yeah,
really fun twist. Like that, like if I was like a diehard fan of the series, that would be so cool to me.
yeah.
Like
No, it is
so
genuinely really cool.
that to me is like, I mean, if you like that series, you absolutely gotta play that game. Like I feel that way without even playing the game. Like it is that's pretty cool. Like
Yeah,
that's really special. You don't get to see that in video games. You don't get to see that in TV. Like you know the rest is in your imagination, but at least you get to bring your imagination to life with it. So that's
yeah.
really cool.
One they do, yeah, and it's very much like and I guess I should mention like you do have the opportunity to like share it online so you can like play other people's stuff.
I figured that would be there would
Yeah,
be some mechanic on that, but that'd be pretty cool too.
yeah,
Like to see what people come up with.
yeah, and that's yeah, to me that's like the fun part is like logging on and seeing like, oh, did somebody make something interesting? What if people played that everybody kind of likes? Like that kind of stuff is fun. So yeah, Sparking Zero. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, I say you're probably already playing it. Actually,
Right. I was like, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, absolutely play it. But as back in my mind, I'm like, they're probably already playing it.
yeah,
But
you might be
you
playing it
know,
while listening to this podcast.
exactly. So yeah, I mean, yeah. So that kind of concludes our review portion of the
Yep.
podcast, and um, I figured we would conclude with the book club topic,
Yes.
right? So it's been long awaited, and um I've had some time to think. And even if you've played these games, just let me know,
Okay.
okay? Because I don't think you've played them all, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you a choice of one of three,
One of three. Okay. Okay.
and you're not gonna hurt my feelings if you say no to any of them. But
Okay.
do let me know if you've played them. So,
I will.
because
I will do so.
there's one I think you've played, but I have a backup to that. So,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
without further ado, um, uh, I guess how do I want to do this? Do I want to say it out loud? Do I just want to drop it in the chat? No, I'll say it out loud.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Option number one. What? Oh, they all have a theme to them, by the way.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so all three of them are either on PlayStation Plus right now, or are super cheap.
Okay.
So they won't break the bank.
Cool. Cool.
So I should preface with that. So I was kind of thinking about. I'm like, what are some like PS3 era games that
Ooh. Okay.
like were definitive to me? Like that
Yeah.
was like during my era, right there. So three came to mind that I'm pretty sure you haven't played or you haven't fully played. So the first one I'm going to say is Assassin's Creed 2.
I have not played it. I didn't realize that was on like modern consoles.
Yeah, yep. It's a part of the Ezio collection. So it's like
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
there's
I have
technically
not played
three
that one.
games. There's technically three games, but like obviously you could, like the definitive one that I would say like if you want to play any Assassin's Creed game, it's got to be Assassin's Creed 2, right?
Yeah,
So
that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
you don't have to have prior knowledge of the first one. It's the second in the series. Assassin's Creed 2 is like the Kingdom Hearts 2 to Kingdom Hearts 1, okay? It is
Sure, yeah.
quite literally the at the time the combat system was far more advanced than like what the first one was. Like the story was more complex, yada yada yada. But I think you would appreciate it. If out of any of them, I think you would appreciate that one the most. So that's the first choice. The second choice is the one that I'm pretty sure you've played, but I
Okay.
just want to make sure that you've played it. So it is Batman Arkham City.
Ooh, I noped out of Arkham Asylum and never got to Arkham City, so I've never played Arkham City.
Gotcha. I mean Arkham's. I would say if you're thinking about it, I'll say this: like similar situation to Assassin's Creed 2, like so much more freeing. I'll just put it that way. You don't have to really play the first one in order to get the second one. As a matter of fact, I played the second one before
Oh, okay.
I even played the first one. So like I played two Arkham Origins and then Arkham Knight and then I went to Arkham Asylum, which felt like a
Okay.
totally different game. So,
Sure, yeah.
which just put it in that perspective. Let's say like Arkham City really started the formula of the Arkham games. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
But so and then the third one, oh, and you can get that in the Arkham collection, I should
Yeah, I
say.
think I have the Arkham collection.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Um, and then the third one is an oldie but goodie. It is a classic, and honestly, it's almost becoming a forgotten story that just saddens my heart. Hopefully, one day we get some form of live action adaptation of it. It is Star Wars: The Force Unleashed.
Ooh, it has been a long time since I played that game.
Have you beat it?
Yeah, I beat it. I beat the Wii
Okay,
version back in the day.
gotcha,
And I beat
gotcha,
the Wii version of The Force Unleashed too. So,
gotcha.
yeah, but it has been a really long time. So,
Did you
it
ever
would
play
be like,
this? I've never played it, but I'm just curious. Did you ever play the Sith version?
oh shoot, I don't remember.
Okay,
That was
like
like,
that's like a
yeah.
DLC expansion right there from the first one.
Okay.
That's on PlayStation Plus. I've never
Okay.
played it, so like, but I've seen clips of it, so
Hmm.
it's worth checking out too. It's like a alternate to an alternate story.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
Okay. That
Um,
does sound pretty cool. Yeah,
so
I
yeah,
mean,
those are
okay.
your three.
Those are my three. Huh. I'm gonna give you my I'm gonna like uh speak my inner monologue.
Absolutely, yeah.
My my first instinct is to be like, okay, Star Wars. I already like I already like Batman, but like I'm more of a Star Wars fan, let's say. Um, actually, now that I say that, that's kind of a weird thing to say, huh? Anyways, I know I like The Force Unleashed. I know I like that game. It's just been a really long time since I played it. That's all. And I haven't had like a reason to go back to it. Assassin's Creed 2 is an eyebrow raiser for me, and not in a bad way, just in like a oh, that's definitely like glory days of the series kind of thing. And then, Arkham City.
There is, I will say, with Assassin's Creed, that is like, I know the other ones are rated T. This one's Assassin's Creed 2 definitely has some mature moment.
Oh, okay.
So I will say that some, if I remember correctly, like.
Is it mostly just like violence?
Yeah, it's mostly violence.
Yeah.
There is I believe, a sexual content moment.
Oh, okay.
But it's like a moment.
Sure.
I'm trying to think if that's 2 or Brotherhood, but I think they both had one actually. But
oh, this was around the time of the Hollywoodification of video games, so
exactly
this would track with that.
But as far as violence goes, I don't think it was too bad.
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
no, yeah, I'm not even.
Far
yeah,
worse
I'm not even
video games.
Yeah, I'm not even worried about it. I'm not even worried about that really. I'm mostly just like, yeah. When I say eyebrow raiser, I'm mostly like, oh, I hadn't like thought of it, but that's a perfect book club game for me. Arkham City is very much in that boat too, except I think like the one thing for me is that like I know, so for one thing, Arkham combat is now just WB combat, right?
That's
like
fair.
It's kind of like I played like the first hour of Hogwarts Legacy, and I was like, and I got into combat and I was like, oh, this is just Arkham combat with wands. Like that was it. That was fair. Basically just it. And that's not to rag on Arkham City. That's just to say like, oh, like I kind of have a framework for that, whereas like realistically, yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna go Assassin's Creed in an upset.
Wow.
In an upset, I think. Would you have guessed that I would say Assassin's Creed?
Absolutely no, not at all. That was the long shot, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no. Part of it to me is like, we have similar tastes. And I know you must like this thing for a reason. Right? You wouldn't be like gunning for every Assassin's Creed game to be good if it wasn't good at some point.
It was, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like, yeah, I think that's part of it. The other part of it is I think the other part too is just like a lot's been said about like the quote unquote Ubisoft formula. And I think there's merit to that discussion, but I think I personally don't have a history with it. Like, I'm trying to think of the last Ubisoft game I played, and I actually don't know if I've ever played one. Like, unironically.
Wow.
Like, I'm sure I played it at like a friend's house at one point. Like, I'm sure I played a Ubisoft game at a friend's house or something. But even oh, you know what? I played some of the, you know what? Rayman.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Rayman counts.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, does Rayman count?
Yes, Rayman counts. Yeah, no. Anyways, all that's to say, even then though, Rayman and like Child of Light and that little like strand of Ubisoft projects aren't the first things you think of when you think of Ubisoft. So like going to Assassin's Creed to me is like, okay, this is kind of filling in um a void, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's yeah. And again, and I don't know anything about Assassin's Creed. Whereas like I've played The Force Unleashed before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember it super well, but I've played it. And Batman is like I could find Batman things for days, right? Like I could probably spend my whole life trying to finish Batman and never finish Batman. That's how much Batman stuff there is. So like, yeah, it's I think that's sort of my thought process. And yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think it'll take you about 15 hours. To be honest, 15 to 20, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I don't think it had taken me longer than 20 hours. And that's even with like doing 90% of the content.
Oh, okay.
So, wow. Yeah.
Does it have
Yeah,
does it have like RPG elements at all?
Not really. I mean, there's like side missions, but that's not like. I would equate it more to like how Spider-Man is. It's the best way to put it.
Okay, yeah. It's more
You know
like
what I'm saying?
unlocks rather than like leveling.
Right.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's, as far as like. Yeah, I'll leave it at that, but. Yeah. That's how it's more like.
By the way,
What?
did you ever see the movie?
No, I know it existed.
I saw the movie. I did see the Assassin's Creed movie.
Oh, the movie. Oh, sorry. They did like some weird thing with Assassin's Creed 2. Sorry. Oh, you mean the actual movie? Yeah, I saw
The Hollywood movie. Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting thing.
Which, okay, as a fan, I gave it a lot of the benefit of the doubt. However, yeah, there's some opinions I have in that where I was like, huh, okay, we're really going down this route.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I will say, like, if you know, like, a little bit of, like, the premise of the first one, like, the premise of the movie, it pretty much sums up the first game.
Okay.
Aside from a different past storyline. But, like, the modern storylines, because it goes between past and modern. If you remember anything about the modern storyline setup, it is almost 1-to-1.
Okay. Yeah. Again, this is another case where I saw the movie think the movie came out in like my sophomore year.
It was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a while ago. So like it's been a while. So I don't remember it super well. And it wasn't that great. So
No.
so it was kind of fun. And Michael Fassbender was giving it his all, but it was definitely like kind of a mess. Yeah. So cool. Well, Assassin's Creed 2, that'll be my my next game, you know, at some point.
Yeah, you got a pretty hefty lineup right now.
Yeah. I mean, for the listeners, I already said I'm playing Metaphor right now. I'm 20 some odd hours into that, so not not very far. And then Sonic comes out next week from time of recording. So
Can't believe it's next week.
Thankfully that campaign won't be very long. But it will be you know, that'll probably take me like 2 afternoons, thankfully, but it won't like, it will cut into some otherwise time dedicated to Metaphor. But yeah. Anyways, that's we're neck deep right now.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of sums up where we're at in the year, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's very much, this is the release timeline. This is how it's going to be with every year around this time.
Yep.
Like, there's going to be stuff coming out. This year, it's a little bit of a dry year for me, but you're eating more than I am, although I am happy to have a Sonic game to give a little appetizer while I'm waiting.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, coming up within our next podcast will probably be around the time. Ooh. It depends, but I don't want to like say for sure because we haven't scheduled the next podcast. But it could be that time of year. What's up?
I'm just noticing there's like a non-zero chance our next podcast is on or around Election Day.
That's fair enough.
Which, you know, we're Americans, if you didn't know that. I have a hard time believing you didn't deduce that, but if you didn't know that, we're Americans. And so that's definitely a choice to record a podcast on that day.
It's true. I didn't even think about that.
I just had the most morbid idea of doing election coverage on election day.
That'd be pretty funny, actually.
That would unironically, that would actually kind of slap as a joke. like if we did.
Just play intense video game music every time like one of the states gets the electoral votes get
confirmed,
decided, and like exactly
when they're
it's just
when like they when they call Minnesota with like 0.01% of the vote or something like that.
Exactly.
Like, we just play the battle theme from 7 Rebirth.
Exactly.
From the opening of 7 Rebirth, where it's like doo doo, like that would be funny.
It would be funny.
But now we can't do it because we said it in a podcast. So yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, I'm thinking within the next podcast or so, on the horizon, it's that time of year for the official. I know we did it back in July of like our speculation, but like
Oh yeah.
now it's that time. Our final predictions of what the Game of the Year nominees are going to be.
Yep.
That's coming up because we're going to be finding that out very soon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Not too long now.
yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of crazy to think about. So,
What
yeah.
I texted Caleb. I think it was last week.
Mm-hmm.
When reviews for Metaphor came out,
Oh yeah.
I texted Caleb a picture of Riku and Roxas like going
Oh
by
yeah
each other on Memory's skyscraper. Haha, I still remember. And it's the game remake of that shot from Deep Dive, where
Mm-hmm.
they're like vertical parallel to each other, and it was Metaphor and Rebirth next to on top of them, and I was like, man, I'm so cooked. I'm gonna have a hard time. I can't speak definitively, but Metaphor is making a very compelling case. Let's just say.
Oh
Let's just
jeez.
say. So we may not have a. It may not be. I would love to have a unified. Sorry, I like this game of the year. That would be awesome, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so sure right now. let's
Uh-oh.
just let's just say but again, I can't speak definitively, so let's well I'll leave it there. But yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, that's definitely a way to hype what's to come. Um,
Yep.
because that's for sure what we'll probably be talking about Metaphor very soon on the podcast. So,
Yes.
yeah.
The only reason I'm not talking about it right now is because I had to work all weekend.
Mm-hmm. And I
So
understand that completely.
yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Well, we're sorry we like that.